Perfect. Thank you, Sadika and Jeannie. Okay, so today's session isn't going to be particularly long. Let me just start recording it here. Oh, apparently I'm already recording. So today we're kind of cleaning up the Scratch unit. I don't want to move into Unit 3 yet. I think that might be a little bit premature. So today I just wanted to maybe handle a couple more little helpful tasks that you should be able to use to help you complete those Scratch assignments and to continue to build upon them and make sure that you have all the skills in place for the two larger Scratch assignments, which are a rock, paper, scissors game and also the raindrops game, catching raindrops. So most of the skills for Scratch I've gone through in the first two live sessions, and those live sessions are always recorded, and I usually try to post them in the learning modules and in the proper unit or module proper section somewhere near the assignments that we're supposed to use those skills for. If you were not able to attend the first couple live sessions, make sure you go back and have a look at those videos, because we go through in a fair amount of detail how you can build these similar projects in Scratch, and it should give you plenty of information for completing the first set of micro assignments as well as the two larger assignments. And I think I'm just going to add a little bit to that today and let you on your way so that you can go work on those assignments. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, either about the course or about the specific assignments or projects that we're doing. Again, I've mentioned this in several sessions, but you are able to fix and resubmit assignments. I'm going to give you feedback on most of your assignments, well, all of your assignments. And if you didn't get full marks, or if you didn't get a mark that you desire, you're certainly welcome to incorporate the feedback that I give you into the assignment and resubmit it for a higher grade. The only assignments or the only items in the course that I don't allow that for are certain quizzes. Although several of the quizzes in the Scratch unit you've probably already noticed you get multiple attempts at. But I think the final Scratch quiz is a one attempt only, so make sure that you understand all the concepts before you try to take that. I had a good question via email, and that was, are the quizzes, sort of open book and open technology? And the answer is yes, they are definitely open book. My online courses are designed to be open book. But I ask that we always maintain academic integrity. There should be no copying of code or projects on the internet. You should not be collaborating with other people on unit exams and assignments. I want to make sure that you individually have the skills and knowledge that you and understanding of the concepts that you need to move forward. So by all means, if you're doing the Scratch quizzes, feel free to have the Scratch program open in another window and to practice or test out some of the theories or concepts and use that to help you answer the quizzes. So I think that takes care of any of the pressing questions that I had from email. Just again, a reminder, please read the assignments over carefully. They're usually pretty detailed and give you a logical sequential order in which to complete the assignment. And oftentimes I'll include little videos or examples or references to outside material that you can use to ensure that you are understanding the concepts and able to produce evidence that you understand the concept, so that we can continue to move forward onto more complex and larger problems that require critical thinking and prior skills. Everything in this course really builds upon what came before it, so it can be quite frustrating for students to skip over the little stuff and go to the big assignments and try to complete them. And make sure that you're moving through the course in a linear, sequential manner, starting at the top, working your way down to the bottom, and that should be the best way for you to demonstrate your skills. Before I go a little further with the Scratch fundamentals demonstration, are there any questions that you have? Anything that you're wondering about? If so, feel free to use your microphone or type in the chat window. Some students have done a really good job on the early assignments and have been moving a little bit ahead of the pace, and that's perfectly okay as long as you feel like you're getting the marks and feedback that match your expectation, and you're doing well. But by all means, you can move forward and get a little bit ahead of the pace. Students often do that, And sometimes students even finish the course early and are able to dedicate that extra time to the other course or courses you're taking this quarter. So I'll just give you a second and check if there's any additional questions or concerns. I'm trying to keep reasonably current on my marking, but I have actually have 5 courses this quarter, so my time is divided in many different directions, and I will continue to do my best to keep that mark in books relatively clean, so that you have feedback when you need it. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any questions. If something comes up during the session, feel free to type it in the chat box, and I'll respond to it. And if something occurs to you after the live session is over, you're always free to email me, and I'll respond quickly. Are we still supposed to do the he can't count past 10 assignment because it is on the assignment sheet but not in an assignment? Oh, okay. That's thank you, Jeannie, for that. I'll have to double check that. I suspect that I used to have that assignment in, and that I got rid of it and replaced it with the raindrop assignment, and I probably just forgot to erase it from the assignments list. So unless you hear otherwise from me, if it's not in the assignments in Blackboard, don't worry about it. I've probably just made a mistake on that assignments PDF in not taking it out, and I'll revise that and post a new one. So if you print it off a list or something, feel free to just cross it out for now. Good question. Good question. Yeah, I tend to make some careless errors like that in my course materials because I'm constantly adding and removing stuff. So if you see anything else like that, please feel free to let me know. I'm going to share my Scratch screen right now. So hopefully that pops up in just a second. And what I've done is I've got that Scratch fundamentals assignment or file that we've been working on for the last couple live sessions. And you know what I might do is I might actually post this in the chat area in case you've missed some live sessions or you just kind of want to practice along with me. I believe I can do a file. If I can do a file drop somewhere in here. Okay, so I made a Google Drive of shared materials that we might use throughout the course because it looks like I can't actually post them in the virtual classroom. What you're going to do is make sure you've got your Scratch open, and whether or not you're using the web version or the desktop version, it doesn't matter. The process is the same. If you go to that Google Drive link, you should see a couple of files, and for this particular session, I'll be using the Scratch Fundamentals 2 documents, so Scratch Fundamentals 2.sb3. And if you download that file from my Google Drive, it should be in your downloads folder. And if you go up to in Scratch, you go to File and then go to Load from your computer. It should give you a box that opens that allows you to pick a file and then load it into Scratch, where of course you should be able to edit, play with it, that sort of thing. So if somebody wouldn't mind maybe giving that a shot, make sure that you can open and load the files. If you've already got something open, it might give you a little message saying you're currently working on a file. Do you want to replace with the new one? And you would just say yes. Make sure you've saved your old one, and you should be able to access this. So I might just wait a couple seconds, and if somebody wouldn't mind maybe checking that out, making sure that's working, that'd be great. If not, oh, Jeannie's got it already. She says it works, so that's good. So if you want to, follow along sort of click by click with what I'm doing today, you can feel free to do so. I've also got the file Scratch Fundamentals 1, which would be the first live session that we did relating to Scratch, which would have been last week, maybe Tuesday or something like that. So you could also start from the very beginning, or you could sort of start halfway through with the second Scratch Fundamentals live session. So if you start with the file that's Scratch Fundamentals 1 and you're looking at the video for the second level of fundamentals, you can just sort of start there and do the materials or the learning that we did on Thursday of last week. I changed the live session calendar, so my dates are a little confused here, but it should be there for you to use in conjunction with the videos if you so choose. And a lot of students don't bother. They understand the skills, or they're able to replicate them based on the videos, or based on whatever other learning they do, or just through trial and error to complete all the assignments. And whatever works for you is fine. Okay, so the only other thing I wanted to do today with regard to what we've already got is maybe throw on maybe some random placement, and then how you could get an object to fall, because that's a relatively large part of the raindrop assignment, and that could be a little confusing for some people. So I think I'll help you out with that today. Now, I just got to remind myself of where I left off on this assignment. I believe we had bats kind of appearing all over the place, and we staggered the time a little bit. Our kitty can move. He's also drawing. I forgot that I put that on. And every time he hits a bat, you should see the hit column it go up there. And I believe that's all we did. So we created some variables and learned how to place objects randomly about the screen. We did animations with changing costumes. I'm not going to review any of that stuff. I'm just going to get rid of what I did for the pen right now, because that's kind of a bit annoying. And there's my pen. So I'm just going to pull those pen items out, because we're not going to need them for this particular demonstration. So, oops, keep that one. All right, so in order to kind of change what we have to more accurately mirror what you might require for that raindrop game, currently I've got it so Scratch the Cat can move up, down, left, right. But for the raindrop game, it is Scratch is at the bottom of the screen, and Scratch really just has to move back and forth. So I'm going to replicate that, and I'm actually just going to clear out those pen marks. Kind of getting in my way there. So currently we have Scratch moving all around the screen, and he's got a couple costumes. He's just got the 2 costumes, so it's a very simple, legs are kind of moving, and hopefully it looks like he's walking a little bit. A lot of the other sprites have more than 2 costumes, 5, 6, 7. But Scratch the Cat only has a couple, which is fine for our purposes. We don't need, for that raindrop assignment, we don't need Scratch to move up and down. So I might just get rid of the up and down section and completely get rid of those. And before I do it, I'm going to save it as Scratch Fundamentals 3. And you may want to do the same, just so that you have starting points for each of the sessions, if you want to kind of do it again, or if you haven't attended the live session, you want to start from where we started. So right now, I took out the up and down, so all Scratch does is move left and right, so that functionality still appears to be working. I've got bats appearing in random places, but the bats don't move after they appear in random places. They just kind of flap their wings and then disappear and reappear in other areas. Now, one of the important things I'd mentioned in the last session is that if you're creating something where you're cloning it, or there's multiple items that have similar coding function, you should get one working first before you copy it. Otherwise, you have to go back and change all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of all of the copies of the bats except for one. And we'll get this bat working the way that we want it to work, and then when we're happy with it, we'll translate that to several more through either cloning or just kind of duplicating and copying and pasting. So currently, I've got Mr. Bat here just moving around on the screen, but he starts in random X and Y locations. If we're looking at the raindrop assignment, the raindrops have to start at the top of the screen, and then they have to go down to the bottom and then reappear in a random spot at the top again. So we'll put in some functionality to handle that. First off, making sure that we're in the bat, sprite. So all the code that's in here is directly related to the bat sprite. And we're going to work with this go to pick random. We want the Y value, we want the Y value to change dynamically, because we want to see the bat not disappear and appear somewhere else on the screen. we just want it to go down. So when we're dealing with up and down, we're dealing with the Y values. Now the bat still has to appear at the very beginning in a random location, but it's random only in that it appears in a random left to right at the top, but then it doesn't change as it moves down the screen. It just needs to start in a random X location, and then after that, the X location will stay the same all the way down. So I'm just going to kind of pull these things apart for now, and I'm going to start from the top. When the green flag is clicked, I do want to pick a random location. However, for the X variable, I only want it to appear between, well, this side of the screen and that side of the screen. So this works fine. It's negative 200 to 200. I'm happy with that. However, for a random Y, we actually don't need a random Y. We want it to start right at the very top. So I'm going to pull out the random Y on this because otherwise he could randomly appear anywhere on the screen. I just want him to appear at the very top of the screen. So what I need to do is I have to find a Y value that's relatively close to the top of the screen. So I'm just going to start with 200, and then I'm going to see where the bat is. You can see whenever I start a new program, he's appearing in a random X location. I don't know if you can see him. He's kind of just at the top here. He's appearing in a random X location, which is the left and right, but he's always appearing at the very top of the screen. So when the program starts, we've got that part taken care of. That's looking pretty good. Whenever I restart, he's appearing in a random spot, and it looks pretty good. So happy with that part. Okay, now for the duration of the program, if we're treating the bat like a raindrop, what we want to do is we want to have that X location change as the bat moves down the screen. And we can do that in a couple different ways. We can have the bat move down at a consistent rate, so it moves the same amount every time, or we can have it so that it's sort of dynamically changes so that it falls at a different speed every time. And if we're going to do something that's dynamic, and maybe we're mirroring gravity where things fall faster the longer they fall, we're going to need some sort of variable to keep track of the Y value or the speed at which things fall. So let's just build that ahead of time just in case we use it. We'll see how far we get. I'm going to create a variable, and I'm just going to call it speed. All right. And you'll notice that speed is listed at the top. Every time you create a variable, it appears at the top. I haven't done anything with the speed variable yet. I'm just keeping it there for now. So what I might do for speed is at the beginning of the program, I'll set a random speed, and we'll see how that works. At the beginning of the program, we always want to reset our variables, and anything that should be kind of reset back to 0, we need to do that right at the beginning of the program, right when the green flag is hit. So what I'm going to do is, I think I've got hits reset in the Scratch sprite, and I do. And I could put the the speed in Scratch as well. I'm going to put it in the bat. It actually wouldn't matter which one you have. So I'm going to set, instead of setting hits to 0, I'm going to set speed to 0 at the very beginning of the program, and then I'll work with that variable. As we add to the bat. So if I've got my speed set to 0, essentially the bat's not going to move. So I'm going to want to maybe randomly set that between 2 values. And so it's not just simply one speed. If we duplicate the bats, we might have some bats falling faster or slower than others. So by using a randomization feature, we can take care of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the change block, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on speed, and it says change speed by 1. Well, that's going to change the speed by a consistent amount every time that it hits this. So if I run this program, because there's no loop in this program yet, it's just going to, when I click the green flag, it's going to set the speed to 0. It's going to move the bat somewhere at the top of the screen, somewhere from left to right, and it's going to add 1 to the speed. Well, that's not random, right? We want to add a random speed. So we're going to go to the sensing part, or sorry, not sensing. We're going to go to the operators part. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick a random, and I'll just make it between, let's say, 5 and 20. Okay. And instead of change speed by 1, we're going to change the speed by some random number between 5 and 20, which means that every time the green flag is clicked, the bat is going to have a random speed, and which means if you have more than one bat, you could have more than one more than one speed, depending on the random feature. The first bat may come down at a speed of 5, the second bat may come down at a speed of 10 or 20 or whatever is between those two numbers. So I've got that set up, that we've got the variable reset first, and then we're going to put a random. We could theoretically just set the speed to random, pick random, 5 to 20 at the top, and you know what? That might save us a block, so we'll just do that. So it sets a random speed right at the beginning of the program, right when you click it. Now, how do we use that speed to actually change how the bat is falling? Well, we currently don't have any functionality in here to deal with the bat falling anyway, so we're going to have to build that in first. And if it's something that's going to be a repeated motion, okay, we know we have to have some sort of loop, and I'm going to use a forever loop for this. So I've got a forever loop in here. So what is it that I want to happen throughout the program? I need to be able to do it in a repeated fashion. Well, I want the bat to move, but I only want it to move in one direction. I want it to move down. So it appears somewhere between the left and right side of the screen, and now I want it to fall at a random speed. And if I'm falling, that means I have to change the y value, and that means the y value has to go down. Because if the y value is going down, it means it's starting at the top of the screen at, say, y equals 200, and then y equals 100 would be in the middle of the screen, and y equals negative 200 would be at the bottom of the screen. So you see the y value is going down if we're going from top to bottom. If we were going opposite, if we were going from bottom to top, we would have to add to that y value. So what we need to do is forever, we need to change that y value, which means we need to move. Now, we can do this a couple ways. We can have, if we go to motion, we can have it move in a downward direction as long as we're facing the right direction, or we could also glide to a random position or glide to a certain position. So what I might do here is I might use the glide, and I'm going to use this one, glide from y to x to y, and we'll just see how this works. And if we want to replace it with a different function, we can. One of the nice things about computer science and programming and using Scratch specifically is that there's many different ways of doing the same thing. So there's many different ways of solving the problem. It's in math, let's say you're in math class, oftentimes you're taught like one way to get to the answer, and most 98% of people use that one way. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to get to the same answer. So it's the same thing in programming, but essentially there's a lot more opportunity for different programs to create the same result. And the goal is always to create the most efficient solution to the problem. The one that uses the fewest resources yet still gets the job done. Let's just go to industry for an example. If you've got two programmers more or less equally qualified and you ask them to do a test as part of the employment, and somebody gives you a chunk of code this long that completes the project successfully, and you have somebody that creates code this long that does achieves the same result, you're always going to hire the person who has done it more efficiently. So let's work with this, and if we don't like it, we can always change it. So what we want to do is the bat is forever. We want it to glide, which means it's just going to move consistently to a certain location. And what we need is we need that x value to stay the same. Okay, now here's the problem. If we put an x value in here, it's going to stay at that same point from the left to right the entire time. But we need to know what that x value is, because remember, our x value is randomly generated right here. And that's a bit of a problem, because if we leave our code like this and just put a number in for the x value, let's say I put in 100, forever, this bat is going to appear at one point in the screen, and then he just glides to the other x value. So we need some ways, no matter where he appears, he's gliding to the x equals 100 portion of the screen, which is right about here. So what I need to do is actually higher up in the program, I need to save that random x value so that I can make sure that it's consistent all the way down. So we're actually going to play with this top part a little bit more, and we're going to create a variable for the x value, and we might create a variable for the y value. Do we need to? No, actually we don't. But let's go to the x. So let's go to our variable, and let's create another variable. So I'll make a variable, and I'm just going to call this x because it's just going to be our x position. You could have called it x pause or x position or something like that. And what we need to do is, instead of just going to a random, X value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the X value to a random. So now instead of just having it happen here, I'm going to save it in the variable, and then I'm going to use that variable here. So the reason I did this is I still get a random starting spot between left and right, but as soon as it sets that random, it saves it in that X variable, and now I can use that X variable, and I can guarantee that whatever the random it set it to up here is going to be the same as the one down here. And that part of the program doesn't repeat. So that just happens at the very beginning before we get to the repeating stuff. What this allows us to do is now when I'm gliding, okay, I can duplicate that block, or I could just grab it again from here. I could drag it into the X value, which means I'll have the same X here, here, and here. And that's important because once it appears in a random spot, I don't want it to change. Otherwise, when it comes down the screen, it'll glide either left and right. And I don't want that to happen. I just want it to come straight down. So now I'm sure that the X value is going to be the same all the time. Now I have to worry about where is it going with regard to up and down, which is the Y value. So the Y value, as it goes from as the back goes from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, we need to subtract from the Y. So if we're subtracting from the Y each time it loops, let's start by subtracting it just by the speed. So when you're subtracting something, that's a math operation. So you'd go into the operators section and find subtraction. So if we look here, there's subtraction right there. Okay. Okay, so our current Y position is 200 because it's at the top of the screen. What I want to happen is I want to change the Y consistently by the speed. So whatever Y is at the beginning, it's 200. Let's subtract the speed each time. We're going to go 200, then it's going to go to 195, and then 190, and it's going to, that way it's going to move down the screen. Now, the other problem here is that in this box here, we have to have something to subtract from. So in doing this, I recognize a problem right away in that I don't have the current Y value stored anywhere, but it might be something that's built in that I can use here. So it says set Y, set X. Okay, here's Y position right here. Okay, so this is kind of like a built-in variable, so I don't really have to change that. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Y value so that this is just the current Y position, which up here we set to 200. So the current Y position at the very start of the program is going to be 200. And I said I wanted to subtract the speed each time. So it's going to subtract 5 from that every time. So if I go and put my speed value in here, okay, and put this whole thing, oops, sometimes it's tough to grab the whole thing, put this whole thing in that Y value, it's starting to look a little bit more complex, but it's quite logical. We know our X value is whatever the random value was we set at the beginning of the program. Our Y position is at the beginning of the program, it's 200 because we told it to be 200. We told it right here to be 200. And what we're going to do each time it loops is we're going to subtract the speed. Now, the speed isn't going to change. After it sets the speed up here in the random, it's going to be some random number between 5 and 20. Okay, so we set it at the beginning, and then whatever that Y value is, or whatever that speed is, it's going to consistently subtract that. So let's just say the random number was 7. Whenever we get to the repeat part of this block, the forever part, okay, it's always going to subtract 7 every time it repeats. So in doing this, we're going to move down the screen at a random speed, but it's not actually going to accelerate as it goes down. It's just going to go down at the same amount in a consistent manner. And that's fine for now. Let's work with that. Always test and revise, test and revise, test and revise. So if I hit the start flag now, let's see if we're starting it. Our goal would be to start at a random X position, so somewhere between -200 and +200, and then set a random speed, and then move down the screen, straight down, and it'll do that forever. So even when it hits the bottom of the screen, it'll just stop there and try to keep spinning. I don't have any way to end this program now, so I'm just going to use the stop flag. So let's just check and see how it went. I might put up the Y position. So if I go up to motion, and I'm just going to click the little check arrow for Y position. And what that's going to do is it's going to show you the current Y position. And what we should see is this going down by whatever the speed is as it rolls. So if I hit the arrow, Okay, now you notice that the random number for speed is 12, which means that this bat is moving down 12 essentially steps or pixels or however it's measured every single second. Because I think our code says it's going to take 1 second to go that distance. Okay, stopped here. So it's going to go. It stopped because it hit the number of hits. I don't have my hits showing right now, but maybe I'll throw those up there. So it hit 15 hits, which was essentially the end of our game. But if I regenerate it and the bat's not going to hit the cat, it should keep going till the end of the screen. So the bat's not going to hit the cat, which means our hit counter is not going to go up, which means that it's going to continue infinitely until I hit the stop flag. But it's moving pretty slowly. You'll have to take my word for it. The bat will get to the bottom of the screen. It'll just kind of get stuck there. So the reason the bat is moving really slowly right now is that I've got it gliding 1 second from the X position to whatever the Y position is, and that actually is going to hamper us. And that's going to hamper us right now. Because it's always going to go for 1 second, which means it actually is going to move consistently down the screen. If I change this to 0.2, it's just going to happen a little quicker. Okay. But because it's moving to a different Y position, and that Y position is set at the beginning by whatever that random number was, you'll notice the random number was 16 this time. Okay, so now it's 16 again. Let's try again. Now it's 9. So you'll notice it should be going a little slower. Now it's it's 6. Now it's 8. And now it's 17. You notice it's moving considerably quicker. This might be a little bit more obvious if I make just a couple duplicates of the bat, and you can see that it's going to go at a random rate. So some of these bats will be moving down at a different rate. They all should appear in different left-right positions at the beginning of the program, but now they'll move down at a consistent rate. So where are my bats? They all went to, why did they all go there? Okay, so go to X, set X to, oh, my X position is going to be the same for all the bats because you can only have one variable. That variable is currently being applied to all the bats, which means they're all, even though they started at a different place, they all go to that one value, that one variable. I can change that when I create a variable. So when we said new variable name, there's an option for all sprites, and for this sprite only, I should have had it for this sprite only. If I was planning on doing multiple bats. So what I might do is I might just create a different way to do the X. So I'm going to delete that X variable. I'm just going to add it in again. So this is going to be our X, and I'm going to say for this sprite only. Hopefully that makes it so that it's for each bat individually as opposed to all the bats using the same X value. So now if I put this back in, go to set X to, what did I say? Random. Set X to should be random. And then I think I went -200 to +200. And then what I'm going to do is go to that X value. And then Y200. Okay, so I think I replaced that. I'm actually going to get rid of this bat and this bat because this is the one I changed it on. And just make sure it's working. Random spot. It glides to that spot and then it goes down. I want it to. X is 106. X, I think I wanted to 2. Oh, everything's going to X right now. X100. I needed to go to whatever that X is. There we go. Now it shouldn't glide. Now it should just appear and start going down. Okay, so that looks like it sort of fixed that error for one bat. Now the test will be, can I duplicate this and will the bats all go to a different X and stay in that location as it goes down, or are they going to meld together again, in which case we have to do a little more troubleshooting. So let me duplicate the bat here, and let's just see if it works. Okay, so now it's working the way I want it to work. You'll see the bats are appearing at different X positions. They're not all conglomerating in that one X position, because I changed the variable so that it's for just one sprite, not every sprite. All the bats, no matter how many bats I had, if I had 20 bats on the old way, they would all come to that same position and then go down. Now, because I've got it set that the variable is just for that sprite, each individual sprite will have their own X value, which means that each individual bat will move to a different left-right location on the screen, and then they will all go down. Okay, now the only problem is they're all going down at more or less the same speed. You'll notice they're all going at the same speed. And the reason for that is exactly the same. We've got a random speed set, but that random speed is for every single, that random speed, whatever it is between 5 and 20, is going to be applied to every single bat, which means every single bat's going to fall at the same speed. If I want the bats to both appear in different areas at the top and fall down at different speeds, I have to do the same thing with that variable. Now, that's just frankly a mistake. I should have thought ahead and thought, oh, this needs to be for not just for one variable, but this needs to be for each sprite individually. So I'm just going to create it again. Oops. I'm just going to recreate my speed variable. It's not letting me do that for some reason. Well, my keyboard stopped working and I'm not sure why. Make a variable. It's not letting me make a variable. Okay. Super strange. Back 3. Make a variable. Cancel. Oh. Delete speed. Delete 2 uses of speed variable. Yes. Okay. Make a variable. Okay, I'm having a technical difficulty here because I'm not able to type anything. I wonder if that's just keyboard stop working. See if I can figure that out. Okay, I have no idea why that's not working. My keyboard appears to be working outside of the program, but it's not working inside the program. So I'm just going to shut it down. And then I'm going to bring it back up and hope that that is fixed. And Scratch, you know, sometimes it does stuff like that. It gets a little buggy. It's annoying, but okay, hopefully most of my code is still there. Appears to be so. Can I type? I can type again. Okay, so that's good. What was I doing? I was changing the speed variable. I needed to create a new speed variable, so I'll make a variable. I'll call it speed again. And instead of for all sprites, I'll make sure it's for this sprite only. So each bat can have a different random speed value. Now I needed to create a random, so I need to set speed to some random. Just duplicate that. So I'm going to set speed to some random, and I think I had between 5 and 20. All I'm doing right now is recreating what I had before. There. So now it's going to set speed some random between 5 and 20, and it's going to do a Y position. Instead of -5, I'm going to make it go down by speed variable. So all I did here is I just put speed back in all the places that I had it before. So let's see if it's working. Bat appears at a specific place. Bat appears to be going down at a random speed. So that is working for one bat. As soon as we got working for another bat, or for one bat, we can duplicate it as many times as we want, and it should happen for all bats. So let's just check and see if they're all appearing at a random location left to right, and if they're falling with a different speed. Okay, so now it appears to be working exactly the way that I want it to. I've got 3 bats appearing at random places, and it looks like they're falling at a consistent but different speed. So you'll notice the bats aren't slowing down or speeding up as they move down the screen. They're moving at a consistent speed, but that speed is different for each bat. So let's say, just using sort of a car mentality, bat 1 is, or a speed mentality, bat 1 is moving at 10 kilometers an hour, but it's never changing that speed. Bat 2 is moving at 8 kilometers an hour, but it's never changing that speed. and ditto for the other one. And that, remember, that was generated because we the speed variable controls how far down the screen it's going to go in the 0.2 seconds. All right, so if it's going to move further every 0.2 seconds, it's actually going faster. If it's going to move, 5 steps instead of 20 steps, it's going to move slower because it's just moving down less each time. So we found a way to make our bats fall down the screen, appear in random places, and fall down the screen at different speeds. And that's really all you need to know to get the base part of assignment, the raindrop assignment done. But we also need to find a way so that the bats, when they hit the screen, they respawn at the top of the screen, because you don't want to have to create a million raindrops and then a million different times for them to fall. When a raindrop hits the bottom of the screen, you'd really like it just to respawn at the top in a different location and continue doing the things that it's doing. So that's another repeated motion, and we can have loops inside of loops. So we can have another forever that controls that part of it. Okay, so if I put another forever around this forever, okay, I've got it gliding right now, but what I want it to do is I want it to check when it hits the bottom of the screen, and when it hits the bottom of the screen, I'd like it to go back up to the top. And we've already got a way for it to determine a random position at the top of the screen. Let's just use that. So instead of just doing it once at the beginning of the program, let's have it do that every single time. So we've got it currently appearing in a random X, but a consistent Y. So the X is going to be, negative 200 to 200 somewhere across the screen. The Y is always going to be 200, and we need that to happen on the respawn too. How do we know when to respawn? We know when to respawn when the bat is at the bottom of the screen. So either we have to use some way of detecting when does it hit the bottom of the screen. And if we have a condition about, if something, I want to do something else, right? So if it's at the bottom of the screen, I want it to respawn back at the top. That's an if statement, that's conditional. So we're going to need one of these, if something, then something else. So we're going to have it check that first. Okay, so what we want it to check, okay, what do we want it to check? We want it to check if the bat is at the bottom of the screen. How do we know we're at the bottom of the screen? We know that we're at the bottom of the screen because our Y value is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of negative 200. So I'm going to make it a little less than negative 200 because you notice the bats get to the bottom of the screen and they kind of hang there. And they may not actually ever get to negative. They might not actually get to negative 200. You can always check exactly what they're at by turning on the Y position. Whoops. The Y position here, and you'll notice that most of the bats are kind of hovering between negative 195 and negative 198. So in my logic, what I can do is I can use maybe negative 190 as my number. So what am I checking? Okay, what I'm checking is if I need to go to operators because I'm checking if something is equal to or maybe even less than would be a better to do. So I'm going to check using this box. What am I checking? I want to check if the Y position is, say, less than negative 190. If the Y position is anything less than negative 190, I want I'm calling that the bottom of the screen, and I want it to automatically respawn at the top of the screen. So what am I checking? I need to find my built-in variable for Y position. So if the Y position is less than negative 190, I know I'm at the bottom of the screen. If I'm at the bottom of the screen, I want the bat to go right back up to the top of the screen. So this is the condition, Y position less than negative 190, and the inner part of the if statement needs to help us respawn at the top. And we've already got logic to help us do that. So if we're at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to set X to a random location. So I duplicated this chunk of code, exact same as the one up there. So I want it to go to Y position. I'm going to have the X random, and then the Y, again, when you duplicate it, it duplicates everything underneath it. So these two lines are the exact same, or these two blocks are the exact same two blocks as up here, but these ones handle the start of the program, and then the ones inside the forever loop handle the respawn. Okay, so I'm going to set the Y position to the same thing, positive 200, and the X to a random. So when it respawns, it might respawn in a different spot left to right. Okay, so if I've got that handled, Now it can go to the part where it falls. And it does all this instantaneously, right? It'll do this and then go to the falling part very, very quickly. Let's test if it works. Once again, it's only going to work for that one bat because that's the only bat I've got it in. So let's just see if it respawns. If I stop and start again. All right, the bat's going down the screen, moving pretty slowly. And our goal is once it gets near the bottom of the screen, past that y equals negative 190, somewhere in that range, that it respawns in the top. And clearly it didn't. And there's a reason for that. That's a very obvious reason that I just missed it. If something's in a forever loop, it's going to do this forever, and it's just going to get hung up on this step. Okay, so it's going to get hung up on this step right here, which means it's never actually going to go back up to here and check this again. So I've actually got, put this if statement in a slightly different spot. I have to put this if statement in the forever loop. So I need to actually put this right underneath that glide. If I put it underneath that glide, and now that I think about it, I actually don't even need it, the other forever. I can do it with one forever, make it more efficient. Good. So I put it in the one forever I had. I didn't need the looped, the second forever statement. So that just saved me a little bit of code. So what it's going to do is forever, it's going to glide, meaning move down the screen. But every time it glides, every time it moves that little bit, it's also going to check, am I at the bottom of the screen? And that's that if statement. And if I'm at the bottom of the screen, it tells it, go back up to the top, reappear in a different random X location, and then keep going. So in the forever loop, it's doing this forever, and it does it in order. Okay, so if it can, it's going to move down. If it's at the bottom of the screen, it's going to put it back up to the top, and then it's going to loop, and then it's going to go down a little bit, and it's going to keep going down. It's always checking every time it goes down. Am I at the bottom of the screen? Am I at the bottom of the screen? Am I at the bottom of the screen? Honestly, it's not. Then it does get to the bottom of the screen. It sets it back to the top, and then repeats checking. Am I at the bottom of the screen? Am I at the bottom of the screen? No, 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 no. Yes, I am. Now I go to the top and do it again. So I did only need that one forever loop, and I've got it so that my bat will appear in a random location, fall at a consistent speed, but a different speed from other bats. And then when it hits the bottom, it bounces back up. So if that's working with one bat, again, I can duplicate it to test. And now, ideally, I've got 3 separate bats all moving at different speeds, consistent, but different speeds in different parts of the screen. And if we've done it right, every bat should respawn in a different spot. So this is a way that you can make 3 bats kind of seem like 100 bats, depending on how long your program is. And the more bats you put in, okay, obviously the tougher it's going to be for the cat to either catch the bats or to avoid them, depending on what the goal is. So you'll notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bats now, but they're all going to respawn. So essentially, I've got infinite bats. There's no way of ending this program right now aside from clicking on the stop button. So that's just going to continue to spawn bats and have them fall. So that should be enough to get you through the main part of that raindrop assignment. Again, there's lots of different ways of doing things I want you to explore. One of the expert challenges in that one is that if you've got a bat, one of the expert challenges to have the raindrops fall at increasing speeds, so it mirrors gravity. So these bats are currently just coming down at a consistent rate. But if we looked at real gravity and we drop something, it actually accelerates as it goes down. So if you can find a way to dynamically change that speed as it goes from the top and gets faster as it goes down, then you've completed the expert challenge on that. But I'll leave that to you. And I've got to go to another live session right now. So if there are any questions or if you're struggling with any of this stuff, just shoot me an email. And also, we've got our live session calendar up. So we are only meeting twice a week. We'll throw in a third session if we absolutely need to. But currently, we're going to meet 2 times a week. So I can also address those in that session as well. So hopefully, this gets us a little further down the road with Scratch. And I'll do my best to keep up with your assignments and keep giving you feedback in a timely manner so you can move forward. So thanks for your time. Sorry, I've got to run right away, but it's 11 and I got another session. And it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Hope you have a good day. And I'll catch you on the next live session. You just have to give me a second to see if I can make that available for you. So if you just wait a couple minutes.